I, 32 female, cheated on my wife and I feel terrible. How should I proceed? My wife Rita and I have been married for 4 years and we dated for 2 years before that. I mostly do freelance stuff from home and she owns a business with her best friend. Their business has always meant a lot to Rita, to the point where I sometimes think she has tied her self-worth to its success. When COVID hit and all the lockdown stuff happened, it hit the business hard. It took over Rita's life. She would spend a lot of her days there without coming home. Even when she came home, she was very tired and didn't have any time for us. This went on for months until things started looking up, but the next waves hit and the whole thing started again. Before this whole thing, we had a good marriage. We were open and spent a lot of time with each other. So when she stopped spending time with me, it hit me hard. I was understanding and didn't bother her. I took care of things at home and looked after her, but even after her business started doing better, she still spent most of her time there. I tried talking to her about it, but she would spend a few days at home and go back there. I even tried taking her on vacation, but she was distracted and worried about her work. All of this left me feeling isolated. I felt like I was the only one putting effort into our marriage. Almost 2 months ago, I met an especially beautiful and charming woman at the gym. I don't know why, but I told her I was single. She asked me out for coffee, and I was swept up in the whole thing. 2 weeks after meeting each other regularly, she invited me back to her home and we had sex. The magnitude of the thing I did hit me the next day. I felt guilty and terrible. I decided that I needed to get a divorce. I stopped going to the gym and I broke up with her. When I started getting things in order to file for divorce, Rita came home and told me that she hired someone to take over for her. She even booked a surprise vacation for us. She started spending a lot more time at home. I kept postponing my divorce after this sudden change, even though I still felt guilty. She started taking an active role in our life after almost 2 years, and our marriage has healed significantly. I know what I did was terrible. I'm not defending myself. I don't know how to proceed now. The guilt is eating at me every day. I'm so afraid of losing her when I just got her back. How do I tell her? You can either take the lie to your grave, as a lot of people I'm sure do. I personally don't condone it, and I would hope that you don't do it. I think you should just confess to what you've done, talk it through, go to counseling if they want to do that. But really, if you went to those lengths to cheat, I do think it is best that you guys go your separate ways. The big thing I'm seeing here is that you didn't communicate with her while those 2 years were going on, that you were upset and that you weren't feeling the marriage. From the way that you've written the post, it makes it seem as though you bottled up all these emotions and your outlet was cheating. But hey, that's me reading your post. You obviously can leave a lot of information out. You can lie, who knows? But now to the comments. Confess and leave. She deserves better. I'm sorry. I don't think you were truly sorry. I mean, why did you have to tell us the affair partner was especially beautiful and charming? I mean, come on. When you tell your wife, are you going to tell her that also? You're just guilty because your wife was able to get the free time and planned this vacation for y'all. Tell her the truth. She deserves to make an informed decision about her future. Things were tough and you reacted by cheating. What happens when you hit the next rough spot? Will you take solace in another woman again? You tried talking to her? What does that mean? You felt isolated. Did you ever tell her? Did you tell your cheating partner the truth, or did you just leave her wondering what the heck happened? I know, right? OP, you took many words to say you basically met a hot woman at the gym, had sex with her once behind your wife's back, and then ghosted her. Regardless of the problems that you had in your marriage, I'm sure you could have worked on things by having an honest conversation with your wife. You have treated both women appallingly. Tell your wife what a selfish cheat you are and let her be free of you. Tell her, then let her decide. Personally, I don't think all cheaters are horrible people. There are many emotional deficiencies in a relationship that lead to cheating, and 2 people usually contribute to a situation like that. My point is, that cheating doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a bad husband at the moment, but not a terrible person. However, hiding this from your wife and not respecting her ability to make choices for herself that are informed means you are using her as a means to an end and not respecting her choice-making capacity. That would make you a bad person. Better to be honest and lose it all than be with someone who maybe wouldn't want to be if they knew everything. And now, onto the update. I confessed to my wife after my previous post. It was a very nerve-wracking process. I couldn't live with the guilt. She told me she knew about it already. The cafe I went to with the other woman was owned by a friend of Rita's. She recognized me and told Rita about it when we kissed. Rita told me that it was her wake-up call. She was worried about losing me and wanted to make an effort before she lost me completely. That was why she hired someone to replace her in a hurry and suddenly started spending more time with me. Rita was angry when I told her I slept with the other woman. I told her how guilty I felt about the whole thing. We both cried when I told her that I was about to file for a divorce. I told her the whole story and how I felt. We cried a lot that evening. We started seeing a marriage counselor after that. The sessions and the healing process have been difficult, but the whole thing has made our bond stronger and reinvigorated our love for each other. We have been spending so much quality time together, and our marriage is in a way better place. Both of us are women, by the way. My original post wasn't very popular and didn't get much traction, but I wanted to make this post because cheating doesn't have to be the end of a relationship. I know that I was the cheating partner, and I have no right to say this. I wouldn't have blamed Rita if she had decided to leave me, but I'm happy that she didn't. And yes, I told the other woman that I was married and apologized to her. And now in the comments, you don't deserve her. You need to vocalize how it's not her fault, and the blame lay entirely with you, unless it was your aim to gaslight her. I feel sorry for the gym woman. She met a seemingly nice single woman, they hung out a lot, had sex, and then she dumped her. I wonder if she's been on the dating sub, wondering what she did wrong, or why people do this, etc. Opie seems to feel no remorse at all about how she treated her. She was just a side note as far as she was concerned. I thought the same thing. She was just treated as a placeholder until Opie's primary relationship was corrected. Poor woman didn't even know why. It's always better to go to marriage counseling after destroying your marriage. Doesn't work the other way, it seems. If this is in the US, it can be difficult to justify the cost of couples counseling when you feel you're in a good place. Also, while getting better, we don't exactly have a positive culture around counseling and mental health care. If we were fed as kids to adults that being in therapy before there are issues should be the norm, then I think we would see less of these circumstances, or repairs attempted after the big problem occurred. Same for individual therapy. Still a thought process that therapy is only for people with huge issues. This is absolutely the case for individual therapy as well. People rarely go before they're on the brink of a crisis or worse, which makes navigating the soul-crushing US mental health care system even more difficult. In a country where less and less people even have a PCP every year, it's not surprising that it's rare for couples to go to counseling until they're contemplating divorce. Who can afford that, or even knows where to get it? Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for telling my friend's girlfriend that I am not her friend?" So I and my friend Jake have been friends since my freshman year of college. When the fall semester started, he told me that he got a girlfriend. I was excited for him and asked who the lucky girl was. He told me her name was Catherine and showed me a picture of her. I instantly recognized her as my middle school bully. A couple of things she did to me was, made fun of my physical features such as my hair and skin tone, as I'm black, told me several times and in front of others that I'm too ugly for anyone to like, spread around the rumor that I was pregnant, resulting in me losing several friends. Afterward, Jake would sometimes bring Catherine when we were playing games in the basement at a library. She seemed like she has changed for the better since middle school, but I just couldn't bring myself to be around her. We would have small talk here and there, but I just avoided her because I didn't want to interact with her too much. I told Jake that Catherine seemed nice, but I wasn't vibing with her. He was a little sad since he wanted us to be friends, but he understood. Here is where I might be the asshole. I'm on winter break, so I decided to go to the mall. I bumped into Catherine and Jake there. They were with 2 other people. Jake saw me and waved for me to come over. He introduced them as his siblings, and he told me that they were with Catherine to hang out. Before I could introduce myself, Catherine told them my name and stated that I was the friend that she was talking about. I immediately said, "No, we are not friends." Jake's siblings then look at me with a surprised look. She huffed and said that I couldn't possibly still be holding what she did in middle school over her head, that she has changed since that time and she was just a kid. I told her that is exactly the reason why I can't be friends with her, and she sneered at me. She then called me a resentful B-word and walked away. Jake apologized to me for the scene that Catherine just made, and he and his siblings went after her. I told my friend what happened, and she told me that I shouldn't have snapped like that, and just pretended to be her friend because I made the whole group feel embarrassed. After she said that, I felt like an asshole because I had already forgiven Catherine for my peace of mind. I just couldn't bring myself to ever be friends with her, as she did a lot to hurt me. Am I the asshole? I don't think you're an asshole for that one. I mean, if she was remorseful for her actions, she would have apologized. She would have brought this up with you before because obviously she knows what she's done. Yet it seems like she went through the whole process of, getting with him, dating, and eventually, becoming his girlfriend, knowing that you were his friend, and that whole time staying in the dark and never being like, hey, him and I are becoming a thing. I need to apologize for my past actions because I really feel bad about it. What can I do to help fix our relationship? Instead, she becomes a flaming Karen at the mall, sneers at you, calls you a bitch, walks away, doesn't take ownership for her actions. Genuinely, who do you think you are, Catherine? Do flowers come out of your asshole every time you fart? Can you do no evil, Catherine? You are delusional. You are evil. I do not like you. Props to OP for standing your ground here. I respect you a lot, and I don't think you're the asshole for this one. You're not letting people walk all over you, as she was trying to do, so good job. And now in the comments, not the asshole at all. Catherine never apologized for what she did, and to be honest, her bullying sounds a lot more like racism than just regular middle school mean girl bullshit, so the fact that she's trying to brush it off is just gross. You were completely in the right for saying that you were not friends, and your friend who said you should have just kept the peace should have kept their mouth shut. Make it clear to those around you that what Catherine did wasn't just ignoring you in the halls or not inviting you to her birthday party. Your friends need to know the scope of what she did and how she hurt you. Not the asshole. It sounds like she never even attempted to make amends for the racist bullying that she did to you when you were in school together. There is no reason for you to want to be friends with her after what she has done. If she wants to be friends with you, the least she could have done was apologize for her past bad behavior and acknowledge that what she did was wrong. The just a kid argument doesn't hold any water. Middle schoolers are old enough to know right from wrong. And you said she sneered at you, called you a resentful B-word and walked away. She clearly hasn't changed. Not the asshole. She is still a bully. She was trying to use you by claiming you were friends to make herself look good because she knows you were friends with her new boyfriend. When you clarified that you aren't actually friends, she verbally attacked you and tried to make it seem like you were the problem. This is textbook gaslighting and bullying. Not the asshole. She may well have fully changed since middle school, but that does not negate the damage she did to you emotionally, to your self-confidence, and general well-being. Things like that happen at that age stick with you for the rest of your life. I'm still, at 47, dealing with the insecurity caused by people like Catherine when I was elementary and middle school aged. You do not have to be her friend, nor do you have to forgive her for that. You can be civil, which it sounds like you have, but only for the sake of your friendship with Jake. But you don't have to be friends with her at all. Info. Did she ever hash it out or apologize? And OP says, nope, not once did she ever apologize for what she put me through. What she pulled got so bad that I had to change schools in the 8th grade to get away from her. Does your friend know this? Does he know that she was so bad that it caused you to change schools? And OP says, I never told him because I thought I didn't have to. I truly thought she had changed and didn't want to jeopardize her relationship with my friend. She looked genuinely happy with him, and it didn't sit right with me to explain to Jake what she did to me in middle school. You need to. He's probably going to ask what that thing was about, so you have the full opportunity to tell him the whole story. And now, onto the update. Hey guys, it's been a while, so I wanted to give y'all an update. Thank you guys for all of your nice words. You guys made me realize that Catherine hasn't changed, and I shouldn't feel bad for setting the record straight. A lot of you told me that I should talk to Jake about what she pulled, and I did. A week after I posted on Reddit, I decided to call him and ask if we could meet up and talk about the mole incident. He said of course, and we met up later that day. It was honestly a bit nerve-wracking because I just don't like talking about it, but ultimately, Jake does deserve the truth about the person he is dating. When we met up, I told him about all the bullying in the past and the trauma that Catherine put me through. I apologized for not sharing this information about her sooner because I valued our friendship and I didn't want to get in the way because I thought she had changed for the better. Jake thanked me for my apology and told me that he appreciates that I was trying to look out for him. He then apologized for putting me in that kind of situation and told me that I didn't have to worry about Catherine anymore. I asked what he meant, and Jake told me that shortly after they got back from the mall, they got into a huge argument. Apparently, Jake tried to inquire more about what happened between us in middle school, and she refused to say anything. I'm guessing that she didn't want to make herself look bad, and Jake said that he had this gut feeling that she must have done something to hurt me in the past, so he decided to ultimately break up with her. She broke into tears and asked why, and he told her that he couldn't be with someone who lies about things like friendship. He also finds her reaction to my honesty to be disrespectful, and if she was going to act like that if someone exposes her lies, he wasn't going to be the one to put up with it. Jake took her home, and he told me that she was going from being passive-aggressive and whiny to ugly sobbing. It was a mess. As soon as Jake got home, he blocked her and hasn't heard or seen her since, which is good. After we finished talking about Catherine, we decided to get some ice cream and talk about games instead. As for her, I haven't seen Catherine on campus since. Have no idea what happened to her, but kinda hope it stays like that. I truly hope she does become better. It just won't be at my expense. Again, thank you guys so much for the insightful comments on my original post. It means a lot. And now in the comments, at least you told him so there was no misunderstandings. She never changed. It just got easier for her to hide her true personality. I hope you and Jake stay friends for a long time. That's a great friend you have on your hands. A lot of people would throw their friends away for their partner, no matter what they did. I'm glad he stood up for you, and he wins too, because he got rid of someone who tries to bury their past through lies, instead of atoning for it. Good for you for telling him. Jake sounds like a good friend and a smart cookie for seeing through and not putting up with Catherine's bullcrap. All the best to you, OP. Go Jake for being a great friend, and good on you for being upfront about what happened to him. I'm glad everything worked out for you, OP. If she really had changed, she wouldn't have called OP a resentful cow. Not even. She would have gotten up immediately at the first introduction and profoundly apologized. In elementary school, my neighbor was from an extremely conservative Christian family. She went to private school and was pretty sheltered. Not allowed to read fantasy books and stuff like that. But still, we played together all the time, didn't get in the way of playing with Barbies and stuff. But more than once, she would say things like me and my family are going to hell for not going to church, and would sometimes be pretty cruel. Anyway, they moved to another neighborhood, and I didn't see her again until high school when she moved to public school. I think the transition to public school was pretty rough for her, but after a year or so, one day she pulled me aside and apologized for everything she said to me as kids. She said she had acted like a real cow and knows better now. It was a long but good conversation. That's what a real apology looks like. That's because she went out into the world and found out that the bigoted, fear-mongering, brainwashing things her mummy and daddy taught her about other people were lies. I'm sure her parents cry on the daily about no longer being able to manipulate their daughter. Love a good redemption arc. I remember that one of my friends messed with me bad for a time in middle school. At one point, it came up, as we hadn't talked about it for ages, and she remembered what she did and said, "I'm sorry, I was such an utter cow back then." Perfect. I didn't bring it up, she did, and she did change a lot in the meantime. Jake dodged a bullet there. Just the fact that the bully clearly remembered what happened but never bothered to apologize says she has never grown up. I can so easily picture being Jake in this scenario. Mall event happens and red flags start shooting out of her ass like a machine gun. Nope, no thank you. I'll be taking you home now. Later. Our next post is titled, "Today I effed up by moving in with psychopaths." I really screwed up. First off, I'm a 23-year-old girl. I don't know how relevant that is. So about 2 months ago, I found myself with no money after having to put hundreds of dollars into my poor car over the course of 5 months. Brakes and rotors were replaced, master cylinder replaced, water pump busted and had to be fixed, serpentine belt, etc. Finally, the head gasket blew, and I had spent all of my savings on my car right when I lost my job. I was working at a bookstore that was due to close on July 4th. I had another job lined up working for the online portion of the store, but my boss wasn't going to bring me on to start packing, shipping, and listing for another month, and I was truly out of money. A friend from high school, I'm calling her Jamie, had been insisting on me moving out to California to work on her cannabis farm with her for about a year. She offered to pay for my plane ticket, told me I had a room, and told me that I would be making $15 an hour full-time. It was the best pay that I'd ever been offered. I graduated high school, but I didn't attend college. But I didn't want to do it simply because it was so far away from my comfort zone and everything that I valued most. I don't have a bunch of friends, and this was the year that I cut off all of the toxic people out of my life, as far as I could tell before this particular incident. But the friends that I do have are incredibly important to me and have dragged me out of some of my darkest moments. I knew that I couldn't prioritize my friends in this situation. It was officially about saving my own ass. Well, having absolutely no money, I started to feel like a burden to my mother, whom I had been living with for a year, to get back on my feet. It was working just fine. I saved up a good amount of money and finally bought a car, but you know what ended up happening with the car. I was supposed to save up and get an apartment by August, but my car is where all of my money went. In addition to gas, food, and necessities, with the occasional small weed purchase, maybe a gram for $20 once a month. And I get it, $20 is a lot for a G, but welcome to St. Louis. Times are hard. Basically, I found myself feeling like moving out here was the best option. Good money, awesome friend that I made a lot of cool memories with in high school, etc., and it started to sound more and more attractive the more I thought about it. I had a long talk with her, and she booked me a ticket. Not before I verified that her operation was legal, that I'd have my own room and private space, that I'd have a job, and that I would like her husband. She verified all of these things with confidence, and I flew out. This was 3 weeks ago. I'd like to point out before this next part that I'm a skeptic by design, and I made damn sure that I was certain it was a good idea before coming out. She and I talked every day until I flew out, and I never would have gathered that anything was out of the ordinary. Well, the first night, I learned that none of the above would be true. This friend of mine somehow managed to lose her mind over the last 3 years it's been since she moved to California. First off, she's married to a psychotic ex-homeless person that I'll call Jack. She just met this guy on the beach and fell in love, got married pretty much instantly. I never would have pinned her as that sort of girl, but I quickly learned that she had changed. I couldn't stand her husband from the get-go, as he was clearly on some whole other level of crazy. He interrupts every 3 seconds, as he only likes to listen to himself talk. He's obsessed with the Illuminati and a bunch of other conspiracies. GMO hate, FEMA concentration camps, you name it. He is incredibly condescending and pretentious about his beliefs. They are both anti-vaxxers and very animated about it. I learnt that on the second day. He's incredibly disrespectful and oblivious to the way his words and actions affect others. Oh, and he's a crybaby about everything. Still, I sucked it up. I had already flown out here and I was already stuck. Second, I have no room or private space. My bedroom is a mattress pad on the floor in the corner of the kitchen. I still sucked it up because I'm not about to be ungrateful about where I'm sleeping. But then I discovered that, lo and behold, they have 2 kittens, and the litter box is in the kitchen about 10 feet away from my bed. Still didn't complain because again, I'm stuck out here anyway. Third, I found out on day 2 that her husband is growing an insane amount of psilocybin mushrooms. Illegal. Not cool. Still didn't care because I figured they weren't under any pressure from the law. Well, that isn't true either, because I then found out that not only is Jamie on parole, but her parole officer organized a raid of their house just a week before I flew out, when my ticket was already paid for. They found nothing because all of their illegal things are located elsewhere in the vicinity, but apparently that crap can happen any time. Fourth, no cell service here. so no way to call or text my friends and family that I'm really close to, unless they had iPhones and I was able to catch a Wi-Fi signal on the phone, which is rare. I had to reactivate my Facebook, as I despise Facebook, just to keep in touch with my loved ones because they do have a weak Wi-Fi signal here, but that was the least of my worries. Obviously, I didn't consider that too awful until I realized how bad things would be out here. Fifth, their plants are illegal. She told me that in this particular area, you can have X amount of plants. She has got a lot more than that. I had no idea until she saw me taking pictures to send to my close friends. She then acted like she had told me all along that this was an illegal operation. I still have the texts to verify that this is not the case, but I didn't want to throw that in her face because I'd realized by now that nothing about this is stable. I'll stop numbering my points now. We got in a fight over the picture I took that night. She went into full crazy mode, told me that she couldn't believe I would be so stupid, how she felt like having me out here was a mistake because of my terrible judgment, and how screwed up I was for thinking that was okay. It was my understanding that the law was not being broken. Why else would I travel across the country to live with somebody? Certainly not to be a part of something insanely illegal, but I digress. It escalated. I tried to keep a level head and explain how I've been trying to wrap my mind around this entire situation, and that I was told the opposite of just about everything that was going on here. Did I mention that our kittens have been shitting and pissing in my clothes, bed, and blankets since day one? She told me I was ungrateful, and that they had a teepee on their property that I was going to have to go live in because I was interfering with their marriage. I left out the part about Jamie making one comment to Jack that upset him so much, he threw a huge glass plate at her that then shattered all over the porch. They fought constantly, to the point that I would be inside crying and feeling sorry for myself for making such a horrible decision to come out here. I should point out, I got a job my third day here and had worked 4 days when this fight occurred. At one point in the fight, Jamie told me she was taking me to the airport to send me home and made me pack all of my things, get dressed, and walk out the door. In that period of time, I emailed my boss to tell her that I wouldn't be able to work for them anymore because I was being sent back home, and I didn't want them to not have someone to work for me in the morning. By the time Jamie changed her mind, I emailed my boss to let her know, "Just kidding, my roommate is just crazy," paraphrasing, and I lost my job based on my unreliable living situation. So she told me I had to go live in this teepee. No electricity, no water, bathroom, kitchen area, or anything, a glorified tent. The only thing about it that's livable is that there is a bed inside. But it gets freezing here at night and hot as F during the day. With no way to contact anyone, in the middle of the woods in a town where sex offenders and hey-yes are apparently everywhere, I wasn't told this either, and drugged out bums roam through the woods constantly, she painted it as this perfect little place for me. It broke my heart because, well, I didn't move all the way out here to live off the grid in a tent in the woods. I have pretty much reached a point where I've got to head back to my hometown. My boss has my paycheck waiting for me at my old work, which is about $150, so I'm just trying to figure out a way to discuss this with Jamie and Jack that won't end in absolute disaster. After all, they would be the ones driving me all the way to San Francisco, which is like 2 hours away, to fly home. So I'd have to end this on good terms, which is extremely difficult when you are dealing with people that are not even remotely stable. Everything here is an argument or a test, and so many laws are being broken. I've been deprived of so many things. I haven't eaten in 3 days because I just haven't felt even a little bit of an appetite. You'd think that I'd be sitting here stoned all the time since I'm in California, but unfortunately, nah. I can't find weed to save my life, and their plants haven't fully matured. There is a lot of things that I left out, but wow, what a disaster. I guess the takeaway from this is that I'm an idiot, and I should have never assumed somebody would be the same way that they were 3 years ago prior. I don't have any idea of what's happened in the last 3 years, but she is a different human being altogether. Almost like she hit her head really hard on something and developed a whole new bizarre and terrifying personality. I couldn't have predicted this if I were getting paid to. I've kept my parents posted about this from the beginning, but I've been ashamed. I've only told 2 close friends about all of this because I feel like they're the only ones that won't think I'm a complete idiot for all of this, having known Jamie in the past. I made a lot of bold statements about how well I was going to do out here and how excited I was to make good money and set my life up pretty sweet-like. I was really looking forward to this, and every single day has been a nightmare in its own special way. I'm just hoping I can make it out of here before the law shows up and tears them open, or before they do something awful to me. I don't trust these people. I'm uncomfortable every minute that I'm around them, and if they try to move me into this teepee before I can afford my plane ticket, I'll deal with it. But I fear for my life and my sanity living in that teepee. Even if I needed one of them for something, it's a pretty long walk back to the house, so they are literally attempting to up and banish me. How they expect me to find another job is beyond me. I'm willing to work, but I am miles away from town. I had a bike, and I wanted to leave this part out, but they gave me a bike, and it ended up being a stolen bike that belonged to my coworker. That's a whole other ordeal I don't feel like going into, because this is long enough. But the bike has been returned, and I now have no transportation except for Jamie. Too bad she can't drive me anywhere if I don't even have the means to ask her for a ride, and she works an unpredictable schedule. I know this was really long, but if you do read it, please don't throw me to the flames. This has been incredibly devastating for me, and just an all-around terrifying experience, and I just want to go home. I know I screwed up, I am trying to make it right. And now in the comments, you didn't F up, you got completely screwed over. I could easily see this happening to me. You definitely need to get out of there as soon as you can. Do you have a debit card? Maybe your parents can wire you some money so you can pay for a cab to pick you up. If not, if you have a smartphone, you could set up a Google Wallet or Apple Pay. If you have a newer iPhone, to receive some money from your parents so you could pay an Uber to come pick you up. If that's not an option, you could set up a Google Wallet and request a physical card in the mail. Then somebody, hopefully your parents, can wire you some money easily so you can pay a cab or something to drive you out of there. Since they are pretty crazy and untrustworthy, I would honestly not try to ask them to help you get home unless it is your only option. If you have no other options to get home and are in extreme fear of your safety, you could go to the police maybe. Yeah, I would avoid involving either one of these people in your escape plan at all costs. Dude threw a plate at his wife for God knows what, and she's probably the person he's able to tolerate the most. Something tells me he wouldn't hesitate to get violent towards OP as well. The wife sounds like she's setting up some sort of crazy-ass commune for her batshit husband. She has no issue flying someone out to California and making a road trip to pick them up at the airport, but they are treating OP like a kidnapping victim and already banishing her to a frickin' tent in the dangerous-as-crap woods as some sort of punishment for perceived slights. And the chick doesn't seem to feel badly about this at all, which means crap like this is normal for them. It honestly gives me the creeps and seems like they're trying to break OP to get whatever their end goal is. That sounds alarmist and reaching, but I cannot think of any good or even neutral motive for being this dishonest, sneaky, and controlling over someone that this chick actively pursued getting out to her home. Get out ASAP, and don't give them a chance to try to manipulate or force you into staying. Tell your parents. They need to know how dire this situation is, and I know that I'd move mountains to get someone I love the F out of this situation. And now, onto the update. There was a 24-hour period where I couldn't come back to this account. This is a throwaway for obvious reasons, and I just expected my post to have been buried during that time frame. Well, I'm an idiot, because I logged in to find hundreds of comments and messages from people that actually took the time to read my story. People offering anything from advice to bus tickets to places to stay, people from all over the country, especially dozens of fantastic California locals that proved to me that I'd just been associating with the wrong people. I still can't find the words to adequately thank those of you that came forward and wanted to help me out. Though a lot of people suggested I start a GoFundMe for myself so I could get home, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I couldn't think of a number that would have made sense to me to not make me feel like I looked selfish. After all, I didn't write that post for profit. I wrote it because I was going through the toughest experience of my life, and I dreaded even waking up in the morning. I just needed someone to talk to. I gained plenty of people to talk to, and you are all insanely awesome. That being said, there were two people in particular that came in clutch and truly saved my ass. The first Redditor I was comfortable talking in length about the situation was a software engineer living in the Bay Area who I will refer to as A, seeing as he was extremely lovable. He doesn't even use Reddit much, but he saw my story and wanted to help. He offered to pick me up and allow me to stay with him, as well as any other help that I'd need. This blew my mind because this man lived 2.5 hours away and insisted on helping me anyway, just because he's a wonderful human being. While discussing an escape plan with A, I'd been talking with another Redditor that I'll call Lee. I'll start by saying that he wishes to remain completely anonymous, so I'll leave out his profession and any other specifics. Just know that this man is also truly wonderful. His original message stated that he wanted to buy me a plane ticket. Obviously, I was resistant to just about every Redditor that offered me help in the beginning because I've always been insecure when asking for help, but both Lee and A separately calmed my nerves and insisted in helping get me out of that terrible situation regardless of my doubts. I agreed to let Lee buy me a plane ticket, and A and I decided we would arrange the kidnapping for 2:30 in the morning on Saturday, after Jamie and Jack went to sleep. Sadly, there was no plausible way to meet any other way without my roommates finding out what was going on. I didn't tell them a thing. Granted, they hadn't brought the TP situation back up in a couple days, but I knew it was coming, and I knew they wouldn't react favorably to my leaving. When Friday rolled around, I knew it was my last day, so I washed every article of clothing I'd brought with me, even if it was already clean, just to get the essence of that house out of it. There was a constant funk in the air. It didn't appear unusual to Jack or Jamie because it just looked like I was doing laundry, and plus, they ended up leaving in the early afternoon, which made it much easier for me to scan the house for anything that I'd left behind. They ended up staying out much later than anticipated. I was starting to panic when it got to be around 11 PM, but then they finally pulled up. I was sitting outside of my laptop when Jamie walked behind me and went inside the house. Jack then came up and told me that he'd spent the afternoon cleaning out the teepee, but that they'd bought me a box of bug bombs, which I'd be responsible for administering before cleaning the spiders out of the teepee myself. I just smiled and nodded along, knowing I was leaving anyway. At the end of his speech, he said, "By the way, Jamie paid like $7 for these, so if you want to reimburse her," and then went inside. I had my $80 or so left over from my only paycheck after giving her gas money, and part of that was a few single bills. I asked her if $6 would be okay. Her response was, "Well, I was thinking more like 100, for half of your ticket out here." It was her plan to take all of my check and have me move out to live in a tent with no money the next day. Nope. I lied and told her that I had a payment due that I hadn't paid yet and that I was sorry. The reality being was that that money was all that I had to make it once I arrived back in St. Louis. She believed me, although visibly frustrated, and went to sleep. A arrived on time in the most expensive car I have now ever set foot inside of in my life. It was surreal. We got my suitcase and bag into the car in about 15 seconds and took off without a single issue. It couldn't have been more perfectly timed, and A was extremely punctual, considering the confusing location of the house. I spent the weekend in his beautiful condo, and got to meet his roommates, two super cool women who, with A, were extremely polite and hospitable to me considering that I was clearly doing far worse than them in every possible category. Just excellent people all around. They made the bizarre nature of my situation much more palatable with their kindness. Plus, they had 2 kittens that didn't use my sleeping area as a litter box, which is always a plus. When I wasn't busy wandering around their cool little city and hanging out with those guys at their condo, I was talking to Lee, the Redditor that paid for my plane ticket. Lee is something to behold as well, because you would not even believe the incredible emails that he sent me. This man doesn't even know me, and he took the time to truly speak to me and convey his faith in me. I swear that this man breathed new life into my previously shot self-esteem and warmed my heart. He made sure that if at any point in time I needed any sort of assistance, that he was always on standby. And not only that, but he spoke with such sincerity and depth that every email had me in tears. What are the odds that the 2 Redditors I'd end up connecting with would end up being 2 of the most selfless and beautiful people that I have ever met? I am so grateful that one website that I've just used for entertainment all of these years has connected me to these two complete strangers and flipped my perspective on humanity. If it weren't for Lee and A, I wouldn't be sitting on a comfortable bed in my own room in St. Louis writing a happy Reddit post today. I am living with an old neighbor, as I mentioned in an update in my last post. She's awesome and we've known each other for years. She's been aware of this entire situation as it's happened and is letting me stay as long as it takes to get back on my feet. Needless to say, I'm already working on that. I don't have a car anymore, unfortunately, but I do have a bike out here and a lot more options for work. It shouldn't take long for me to pull myself together, especially not with the help that my two new friends provided. I wish that I could send both of them gigantic edible arrangement bouquets, but I might have to settle for postcards for now. Thank you to everyone that cared about my story. Thank you to everyone that wanted to help, and all of you that were absolutely ready and willing to donate money, shelter, rides, etc. to my cause just because you were good people. Thank you especially to A and Lee. I hate not being able to use your real names, for going above and beyond and completely out of your way to ensure my safe passage back to my hometown. I truly hope that I will be able to return the favor someday. And that's where I'm going to leave the stories for today, guys. I do hope you enjoyed this extra long one. If you did, let me know what you thought of it down below, like the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.